Well, ladies and gentlemen, the worst kept secret in the NBA has happened. Doc Rivers is back. He's out of the ESPN booth. He is now going to be coaching more Hall of Famers, more all-time great players. He is now the official head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks. By the way, we need to respect CNN Sport, which I'm sure confused a lot of people last night when Adam Lefkoe said on Inside the NBA on TNT that Doc Rivers was going to be the coach. According to CNN, everyone was confused by that. You even had insiders who report on media inside stuff, talk about Inception there, but you even had media insiders saying that, yes, the CNN report was real, and then it was confirmed by Woj and Shams this morning. So we need to respect CNN Sport. They reported it first. But anyway, Doc Rivers is a Milwaukee Buck after they shockingly, or not shockingly, if you're a Bucks fan who follows this team closely, or if, you're the guys over at the Eurostep podcast who predicted at the end of their previous episode, or not predicted, but, asked if they would be okay with Griffin being fired. So kind of a little clairvoyance there. But Adrian Griffin is out. Doc Rivers is in. And this is just, one, for the content and the memes, this is just hilarious. Two, I'm throwing out my Bucks Nuggets preseason finals prediction. No way I'm putting any stock in Doc Rivers. I'm sure people who have been long subscribed to this channel can understand that. But I do want to talk about that a little bit because as much of a Doc hater as I am, I did think last season he was relatively fine in the playoffs. It's just that the Sixers' two best players, including mainly Joel Embiid, did not show up in the last 5 minutes of Game 6, and then they completely no-showed in Game 7 after having a turning-the-corner type of win in Game 5 against Boston, but didn't show up in the last 5 minutes of Game 6, did not show up at all in Game 7. I thought Doc was relatively fine in last year's playoffs, but in the 2022 playoffs and the 2021 playoffs, he was objectively fucking awful. But there are some redeeming qualities that the Bucks do need from Doc Rivers that I think he can provide, because Adrian Griffin, as much as I wanted to see him finish the year, he was an objectively bad coach. And Doc does bring a baseline level of competence that the Bucks do need. So if you're a Bucks fan and you're listening to this video, I wanted to shed some light on what Doc Rivers can bring to your team. And there are a few redeeming qualities, even though I think he has a lot of negative drawbacks that I think will ultimately tank this team in the playoffs unless Giannis and Dame just go absolutely nuclear. So, what does Doc Rivers bring to the table? I can't believe I'm about to do a positive Doc Rivers video. By the way, real quickly, before I do that, I have to get my, other thoughts in on this. Let's just agree that Doc Rivers is a snake, and that might sound harsh, but when you hear the stories about how he got the Philadelphia 76ers job and how everybody thought it was going to be Ty Lue's job, and then Doc Rivers found out he got fired from the Clippers and then swooped in all of a sudden and got the Sixers job, even though Sixers ownership didn't want to wait to hire a president of basketball operations. So Doc Rivers just swooped in and took a job from Ty Lue that he was for sure going to get. Then you read the Athletic report yesterday, the multi-reported Athletic report by Shams Charania, Eric Nehm, who covers the Milwaukee Bucks on the beat for the Athletic, and Sam Amick. Doc Rivers was a consultant, an informal consultant for the Bucks, and it started in the Vegas in-season tournament when the Bucks lost to the Indiana Pacers. And one, that's also funny because in the month since then, the Bucks have been playing really up and down. So what kind of tips was Doc Rivers giving Adrian Griffin in the first place? And two, new ownership is always a funny thing. Doc just has a way of persuading people. He's coached in the league for damn near 20 years, starting with the Magic in 1999. He has connections all over the place, knows people, owners want him, executives want him. It's a name. Doc, in a lot of ways, is more of a celebrity than most NBA coaches are. And listening to the Eurostep pod yesterday, the emergency pod, it sounds like maybe, that's the hunch is at least, that Jimmy Haslam had something to do with this, part of Bucks' new ownership. So maybe that was a factor. But Doc Rivers is a name, and people want that. And Doc Rivers wins a lot of regular season games, and people like wins. So with that being said, Doc is a snake. I don't like a lot of the things Doc brings as a coach, but the redeeming qualities that Doc brings as a coach, what will he bring? One, he will definitely have a plan A for the personnel he has. Like I mentioned in my video yesterday, there's going to be a lot more Dame Giannis pick and roll, I suspect. There's going to be a nice offensive sets around that. The problem with Doc is when that plan A, when that shit hits the fan for that plan A, he can't really deviate from that. He can't adjust to that. But with the talent that he has, with the all-time great players that he has in Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo, that's not a bad place to start crafting your plan A. So that plan A will work. The Bucks will have an identity. It won't be this win in spite of Adrian Griffin. They will win because they will now have a set formula, a set of rules to follow, because Doc Rivers will put that in place. 2, Doc Rivers will command the respect of players in the locker room, which to me sounds like the main reason Adrian Griffin is out. Because if players respected Adrian Griffin, if Giannis respected Adrian Griffin more, even though that was his choice, although that part might be a little bit overblown, I won't go too much into blaming Giannis on Adrian Griffin being Giannis's guy, but it was a fact. It is something to consider and think about, but players did not respect Adrian Griffin, and Doc Rivers commands respect. As much of an overrated resume he has, he will command respect from the players. 3, I will give Doc this. He is good at giving the other players on the team, and hell, this could even apply to the stars on the team. He is good at condensing roles on the team. And he is also good at simplifying things to accentuate the stars' talent. So he is good at simplifying and condensing. For the other guys on the team, he will condense the guys to a certain role, and he will make sure those players stick in that role and hold them accountable. And also, as far as guys like Giannis, I imagine we're going to see less jump shots from Giannis, even though he is shooting a career-high 60% and is attacking the rim with a ferocity more than ever. He still does take the occasional jumper, and I'm sure Doc does not want that. So he will make sure that he will simplify things for Giannis and Dame. Dame will probably have the ball in his hands a lot more. So we're going to definitely see more of the Giannis-Dame two-man game that we were expecting to see before the season started. And then 4, this is just anecdotal, but he is going to provide just some all-time great media quotes and bits, even though it'll be condescending and it'll be annoying, especially if you're a Bucks fan who reads any of the really good beat writers they have and, you know, you're grown to be a fan of their writing and stuff. If Doc Rivers becomes condescending to them at any point during the season, during press availability or whatever, it will be annoying. But he will also provide some great quotes, like when instead of saying that he told the Sixers to stop playing with their food, he said stop playing with your meat, which is just one of the funniest quotes I have ever heard in my life. So you will get that. So Doc does bring some baseline things that I think the Bucks were missing, despite the fact that they are tied for the second best record in the NBA. But the concerns will always be the same. And like I said, he was fine in the playoffs last year coaching. I will give him that. But the stubbornness, the inability to be flexible, to try shit when shit doesn't work, when his plan A does not work, he will not try shit. He will simply tell the guys to do it harder. He will not play the young players. He might trust Marshawn Beauchamp. He might get like 10 to 15 minutes a game. But Andre Jackson, I just don't see him playing much. AJ Green, I don't see him playing much. He's definitely going to lean more veteran heavy because that's what his experience dictates. But my thing is, if you're just going to go with the plan A but doesn't deviate from plan B type of coach, they should have just kept Mike Budenholzer. But that's neither here nor there. We're in the reality that we're in now where Doc Rivers is the head coach. And while he does bring some redeeming qualities, I just don't see how this is going to work long term. By the way, he also likes to throw players under the bus. He also likes to deflect blame. Nothing is ever his fault. He also speaks with a retrospective perspective that makes it sound like the teams that he had accomplished more than what they actually did, or he misremembers how it ended. Like with the Clippers, for example, how he talked about why it didn't work out with the Clippers, and then he incidentally misremembers that the 2 seasons he referenced were the injury-plagued playoff runs instead of, the 2013-14 playoffs and the 2014-15 playoffs where they actually had a shot. And then you have old players that used to play for Doc like JJ Redick and Jamal Crawford being like, what the fuck? That's not how it happened. Guys like Josh Smith basically saying fuck Doc Rivers. So he comes with a lot of baggage. But with where the Bucks were, the fact that it's mid-season, the fact that they have an aging championship caliber roster that can contend now, and the fact that they had to move quickly to get a head coach with some credibility, I guess Doc was the right hire. But he wasn't the right hire, in my opinion. It's not going to work out. But who knows?